High vibes, everybody, and welcome to another Astro Solsin Rewind on the channel Vibration. Today we're going to be covering a pretty interesting topic and some that we hear about in like different. I left my closet open. That's cool. One second, y'all. Alright, I'm back. Yeah, one that's, like kind of talked about in like movies and sci-fi, and most people would think it's not a real thing that we can do, and that's, telepathy. And in this video, the MC goes into telepathy and what it really is and like how we can communicate, non-physically or just simply mentally without even having to say anything to someone. And this is something I've experienced myself, with my family and close friends and even loved ones. You might experience this sometimes where like you're having a conversation and you're just vibing it up or whatever, and then all of a sudden you think of something like as they're speaking, and then the next thing they say is like that exact word, and that's an example of like how you're picking up on those thoughts. But I want to pretty much get straight into the video on this one because it is a little bit longer of a video, but it's a really good one. And yeah, let's get right into it. So, hope you guys enjoy.
Vibes. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Astro Solsin. Welcome back to the channel. In this episode, I wanted to go ahead and share some information on etheric communication. And what do I mean by etheric communication? I mean being able to communicate etherically. And etherically, it's like, what does that mean? Well, if we talk about the ether really equates to electricity, which really equates to mental energy. When you learn how to break it down and you've been through the different processes of, your spiritual awakening, going through all the each steps, eventually you start to figure out about these different energies, because there's energies that you cannot see. When they talk about chi energy, prana energy, organ energy, source energy, it's all the same thing, but it's dealing with energy you can't see with your physical eyes. So what you have to learn how to do is tap into that field. Tap into that grid system, dealing with the mental grids. See, we look at Nikola Tesla. He was able to reinvent a lot of things by being able to tap into this etheric realm and learn about the etheric energy. Even if you go and read a lot of his stuff, he was talking about the ether. He was tapping into that realm. And of course, at that time, they didn't understand him. They're like, man, what is this dude talking about? And he was just ahead of his time in his particular, society and stuff, because this information is old. We always knew about the etheric realm. Spiritually speaking, we knew about all this stuff. They're just breaking it down in a scientific way, so eventually they catch up and realize, oh, they were telling truths the whole time. We just had to make all these different tools and stuff to figure it out. But basically, the etheric realm is a mental energy. It's an energy you cannot see. This is how we communicate through telepathy, through this mental grid, through the etheric energy that you cannot see. See, this is the ether. And when you're talking to somebody, having a communication, although you may be using, your physical attributes like, your facial expressions, your hand gestures, your body language, the pitch of your voice, which, that's all vibrations and everything. But you may be using that, but what you may not understand is at the exact same time, simultaneously, when you're speaking to that person, there's an energy exchange going on. You may not be able to see it. You may be able to see it, some of you, but you may not be able to see it, but there's an exchange of energy going on. And you guys are actually communicating etherically. You guys are communicating etherically, whether you even pick up on it or not.
Yeah, that's a really good point right there. Is that like a lot of the times we forget that energetic aspect of reality, or the ether, if you want to call it that. It's really all just energy. It's all terms of vibration, and how we can explain different vibrations and different wavelengths in this reality. But when you're having a conversation, that's something to take into account, is like the actual energy that's going in between you two. And if you have a strong connection with that person, like I was saying before, that's how you might actually be able to pick up on these thoughts. You might be able to pick up on what they're going to say, or they might be able to pick up on what you're about to say. And before you even say it, they already said it. You're like, dude, I was just thinking about that. Or there's a lot of different ways this can go about happening. But it's always, that energy exchange is always there, and it's always something to be mindful and aware of, especially especially in this reality. Like, we have to think things of terms of energy, and that's getting to the more non-physical aspect of the reality, because there is the physical, there's the actual, physical communication that we can have, but there's also that non-physical communication that's always taking place as well with everything. You could even have, if you think about, like, with your animals, like, they don't necessarily understand the human language, but like they're picking up on your energy. That's how an animal responds to your energy, or like your words. When you tell them, to, hey, come here, like whatever, they can pick up on that energy. It doesn't mean they're gonna necessarily do it, but I'm just saying, like, that's an example of like how we have that sort of non-physical communication, that energetic communication, even when it comes to animals, because you could have telepathy in between your animals, and you might be able to pick up on what they're thinking sometimes. And that's just another example, because you can't, like, you can talk to your cat or your dog or whatever, right? But it can't necessarily talk back to you. It might bark or something, or it might meow, but it's not like a human language way of interacting. So like, you can pick up on that energy though, and you might understand what they're actually trying to communicate, and vice versa. But that's something I just wanted to put in there real quick.
See, your subconscious mind filters out information that it deems not necessary for you in that moment right now. And let's say this subconscious mind, which is kind of like an autopilot for the data and information that you become conscious of, it tells you, it screens the information before it gives it to you. It says, this information isn't useful, throw these all out, throw these out. And then eventually it sends you, something that it says is good. And this is all happening boom, 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 like that. Like faster than light speed. There's not even a speed that they came up with, to explain how fast things happen in that darkness, inside of here. So essentially what's going on here is you could be communicating with somebody, and at the same time, even though you may not, somebody could be faking like they're happy and they're like, yeah, I'm all excited, but you could see right through it. Maybe you can't physically see it, right? Like, they look like they're happy. They got a really good poker face. They're all smiling. Their body movement is good. They learn how to trick people through the physical grids. They learn how to fake physically, you know, like they feel good inside. Even through their voice, the vibrations coming out, they were able to mimic, the feeling of being good and stuff through that physical, acting and stuff. But then, when it comes to the mental energy, when it comes to the etheric communication, you can feel there's something wrong there, because you have that direct link with them now, energetically, etherically. You're communicating with them and you can feel something. A lot of empaths, they have that. They know what I'm talking about. They they don't necessarily have to even hear the words you're saying. They don't have to get none of that. All they got to get is that etheric link between you, and they can communicate that way. So at all times, there's communication going along. You could walk into a room with a bunch of people, and you may think, just because you're not physically, associating with them and talking to them, that there isn't any type of energetic communication going on. This is why you could walk into a room, right? And there's a group of people, and there's a negative person in that group, and you could just feel it. You're like, man, something is, I feel something's wrong in this room. Somebody in this room is negative. And you just feel it inside, right? That's because that etheric energy is actually feeding you information and data. You might actually be fighting energetically with somebody in the room. You might be a high vibrational being, and a low vibrating being might, their energetic field might have spotted you in its parameters, and now you guys are energetically fighting and you don't even know it. They could be across the room, but energetically, through the etheric communication, you guys are arguing with each other electrically. You see what I'm saying? This is a lot deeper than a lot of other people want to get into. A lot of people don't really understand how this works, but we're speaking, etherically. And
I think that's a really good point you just made right there too. How it's like being connected through the electricity or through the the electromagnetic fields, and that's something you got to realize. Like we were saying before, it's all energy. It's all just different wavelengths of energy and vibration, and that's the electricity between us. That's like the space in between. There's actually a lot going on in that, and if you can pick up on that, you might be able to start to sense, when someone's vibration is off, and like you said, when someone's putting on this front of like, oh, everything's good and everything, but inside you can feel that tension, you can feel that resistance between you and them, and that's just something to be aware of. That's where like actually having the energetic awareness of yourself and your surroundings comes into fruition, and it's just something to be able to tap into. The more you can work on that, the more you can work on your own energy and being able to sense your own energy and your own vibration, you'll start to be able to pick up more on the environment and those around you and their influence on that energy as well. So something to always just be aware of, be in tune with, especially, if at work, for example, that's a really good place that you can actually sort of practice this stuff, because, you come into contact with, if you work in like retail or food or something like that, you might come into contact with a lot of people on a daily basis, and to some empaths, that might be a burden on their energy. They're picking up on all these negative emotions and thoughts and different feelings, basically, that bring them down. But if you're aware enough and you have the right energy inside of you, you can actually use that like to boost you up and to build you up and say, okay, like let me actually, feel out these different energies. When I'm talking to this person, what sort of energy am I getting into when I have a communication with them? And then, when you talk to this person, what sort of thing is going on, you might feel that, and you might be something, you want to work on. Personally, I've definitely, had a few jobs in a lot of retail and food environments. And that's something I had to be aware of, because if you're not being aware of it, it's easy to get sucked into their negative vibrations that they're putting out. And then especially if you're an empath, you have that high level of empathy and energetic connection, you might just be absorbing these things without even realizing it. So always having that awareness is a big, key in, not allowing those things to affect you on a more negative level. And you can actually use it as a sort of training, like I said, or a sort of way to, train your telepathy and train your ability to sense energy. But let's get back into the video.
this is why they say, a lot of our ancestors and stuff, they didn't even have to talk. They didn't even have to do sign language, none of that, because they understood how the etheric realms work. They understood the mental grids, the spiritual grids, and the physical grids. You see, we speak physically on the physical level, but we also speak on the mental level and the spiritual level. See, this is all happening simultaneously. All these grids are happening at the same time. The spiritual realm is here right now at the same time. The mental realm is here right now at the same time. It's layers upon layers of different dimensions. And you can access those different dimensions of the mind by going into your meditation, observing and getting into these deeper stages of consciousness, where eventually you will tap into that etheric realm and you will understand how it works. You'll begin to learn how to contact, not only the people here physically that you're communicating with, but you might be able to get in contact with your ancestors, all sorts of stuff, spiritual guides, the animal totems, all that. You can get in touch with them etherically, but you have to know how to tap in. Sometimes you just spontaneously tap in. And some people, it's almost like tapping into a frequency. Two people are communicating, over some satellites or something through some radio frequency, and somehow you tap into their frequency and you're able to hear the conversation. People have this where they're hearing voices and stuff, and they're like, man, they're freaking out and everything. They're all scared. They're like, man, where are these voices coming from? Man, there's an etheric field out here, and there's information being everywhere, and sometimes you might focus in and zone in on one of these energetic links that they have that they're communicating through, and you're tapping into an etheric conversation, and you're hearing these different beings communicating over that network, because this is essentially the subconscious network. Subconsciously, people are able to communicate, all sorts of stuff, teleport, everything. And the thing is that this subconscious network, most people don't have access to it. Most people don't even know it exists. I'm passing out keys and stuff, but people don't really want to tap in. And I'm going to be going through a lot of this on the website and stuff. I already started going through some of this stuff before, but the etheric communication is always going on. You know, when you start to really tap into it, when you're talking to somebody, you'll start being able to pick up on things. You're like, man, how am I picking up on this person's thoughts? Because energetically, there's an exchange going on. It's like putting a flash drive into your computer. When you guys start, contacting each other and getting, the close vicinity with each other, all of a sudden this link, it becomes stronger and stronger to the point where it's almost like, you guys plugged into each other and you're sharing information and data now. And sometimes people can do that without you knowing it. It's like a hacker. It's like if they, found a back door into your energetic field through the etheric realms, and now, they plugged in and now they jacked your information from you. They're getting data and information from you, getting certain visuals and thoughts, and energy vampires and stuff. They can use that, and psychic rebels, they can use that against you. So you have to make sure you're protected etherically as well. This is dealing with, the psychic shields and things like that, because it's going to help you mentally. See, the mental part of this reality, that's where all the traps, that's where all the illusions and everything are going on. So it's very important you learn how to shield and protect yourself, and you learn how, these people are working here in the mental grids and getting everybody, pretty much underneath a mental trap, a mental prison. See, physically, you might be walking around and feel like I'm free, I can do whatever, but mentally, you might have an etheric, trap on you. And you have to be able to go within yourself and find that trap and break yourself free, and then be able to shield yourself so you can focus more on your spirituality, because your spirituality is essentially where it's really truly at. Your spirit is where it's at. Your mind, your mind is fun, going into astral projections, lucid dreams, and all that stuff, and you have to know that in order to protect yourself. If you've seen the movie They Live, right? Most people have probably seen that by now. When he puts on the sunglasses and he can see everything else that's going on in reality, that's a form of protection in itself. Being able to see the truth. Now you're like, okay, I can, I can safely shield myself from these different agents and things like that out here. So essentially, once you can.
I just wanted to chime in on that note again. Like I was saying, with when you're going about your day and you're at work, or at these different environments where there's a lot of people, you have to realize that there's the light and the dark aspect to everything. There's that positive and there's that negative aspect in this reality to everything that we experience. So although like telepathy can be like a really cool thing that you can do with like I said, with your loved ones, with your family and your close friends and stuff, and even your animals, your pets, that's something really cool. On the more positive aspect you can do to get in contact with them, you also have to realize that there is negative energies out there that can use this energy against you in the same way that you can use it in a positive way. And that's always something to remember, and having that awareness, like he's saying, like in the movie, that's basically the symbology of what that represents, is when he puts on the sunglasses, which is like putting on that awareness, tuning into that higher awareness of seeing the reality for what it really is, seeing the symbology and the deeper, non-physical energies that's behind these things. That's, having that awareness is like protection of itself, and then knowing what you can do to, block out those energies from getting into you, because it's all, it's all linked together. And actually, he was mentioning the psychic shielding, which he does have a workshop on the website. It's the psychic shielding tutorial. I'll make sure to leave a link in the description of this video as well, because that's a really good tool that you can use, to actually learn how to, develop these shields for yourself, and to have that psychic protection, from etheric attacks, because, there's just as much as, like I said, there's that light aspect. We can't be oblivious to the darkness. We can't be oblivious to the negative forces, because when you start raising up in vibration, that's when they come. So it's just being aware of that, and then having the right tools so that you can protect yourself is going to help you so much. So I'll make sure to leave a link in the replay of this video to that workshop, which is going to help so much. I've been applying this for, I think it's been out for at least 3 years now almost. And, I've been applying that workshop, and it's helped me so much with, being able to block out some of those energies from coming into my field. So I definitely recommend anyone that's interested in that to check that out. But let's get back into the video.
And tap into, these etheric energies and the etheric communication and stuff. That's going to help you a lot more on your path and your journey, and help you navigate through this thing on your journey and path. Because that's a lot of people's, what a lot of people stumble on is the mind. The mind, can trap people and keep people in these loops. People can't learn their lessons and stuff because they're not able to tap in. And some people, they don't want to deal with what's going inside here because there's a lot of, garbage in there that they let pile up. It's like the dishes, for example. If things in your life are starting to get chaotic and everything, and you got dishes that you're supposed to be cleaning, but you just put them in the sink, and then all of a sudden somebody calls you and you got to do this and that, and you keep getting busy, and this happens for like 2 weeks. Next thing you know, all of these dishes are piled up, and you're like, man, I don't even want to deal with these dishes. I don't even want to clean them. And then you start getting depressed and lazy and all this other stuff because you let these dishes pile up, because you weren't able to go within yourself and really deal with it. Instead of cleaning the dishes and dealing with it and slowing down a bit so you're not so, chaotic with all these different thoughts. Because essentially, if we look at the dishes, like all the thoughts that you're having, you're not dealing with your problems that are going on inside here. You're letting these dishes pile up. So you have to learn to clean the dishes as they come in, and not let it pile up so that it's so hard to deal with. So if you do have the dishes piled up, let's say you have a whole bunch of mess inside of your mind that you have to deal with right now, take it step by step by step. But you have to learn how to release that tension and things like that. I talked about on the other channel, getting into the meditation, going outside in the nature and stuff, because that's important. That's going to let a lot of that, negative energy and stuff like that just kind of, melt itself off of you just by getting into nature and getting away from everything and letting go of all that. Then go a little deeper and start getting into your meditation, start journaling, let go of the TV, all that stuff. And you start to really tap in. See, when you can get a hold of this, it makes life a lot easier. And when you start tapping in deeper into this and you learn that you can communicate through these different etheric realms and stuff like that, these different grid systems, then you take it a step further, and now you start to pick up on different data and information that you weren't ever able to pick up on before, unless it just spontaneously happened to you. Because that happens sometimes. People tap in for a second, they get a little peek behind the curtain, and some people it freaks them out, some people it excites them, just depending on what level they're at and how much fear they're dealing with. But eventually, you get enough experience and stuff there, man, you're on a whole different, brainwave at that point. You're on a whole different level, and you realize that you're not alone. There's a lot of people already, speaking through this etheric grid system. There's a lot of people already communicating with telepathy. You're just not on the level where you can notice it. Like I was saying in that movie They Live, you get the right, glasses to see what's going on, and you'll notice there's a whole world here you weren't involved in. It was slipping past your eyes the whole time. You're like, man, I'm starting to sweat and everything. It's getting hot in here. No, but yeah, you got to make sure that you can, get access to this extra information here, so that you have extra access to getting out of the trap. See, a lot of people, they're closed off from the information a lot of times because they're just scared, because they have fear. They don't want to open up to something new. They're afraid of change. They're afraid that, the current belief system they had was wrong, and they don't want to deal with nothing new. But when you start to grow and evolve, you start to realize that a lot of this stuff, there is physical communication. There is physical this, and that. But then there's mental communication, mental this, and that. And then spiritual communication and this, and that.
I just wanted to touch on that real quick too, because like that's why, like he was saying, like, cleaning the dishes, like it's a metaphor to cleaning out, the subconscious mind, or taking out the trash. You could look at it all these ways, like all these chores that we do in the physical reality. That's kind of what you have to do with your mind, because if you don't like get rid of that stuff, it's just going to be weighing on you, and there's going to be all these thoughts and different fears and different programs that just pile up. And then it all just hits you one day and you're like, man, like I am like just not feeling right. You're dealing with all these problems. But that's why like cleansing, like you said, going out into nature, going into your meditation, letting go of certain things, letting go of your belief systems too, and old belief systems, and breaking those cycles so that you can get into something new is like one of the biggest things you can do on your path to really expand and to really get into a new state of consciousness. Because if you just want to stay in the same belief system, your entire life, and when you first got into spirituality, and you might make certain beliefs over this stuff, and then you hear something like Astro's talking about, and you're like, oh, I don't want to hear that, I don't want to like deal with that, or I'm too afraid of that, or I'm afraid of these agents, or I don't want to believe in that stuff. Like, you got to realize, like, these are programs running on your subconscious mind, and these are the things that are actually holding you back from igniting that spiritual fire within yourself and becoming more in tune with your spirit, more in tune with your higher self, more in tune with your true self and your intuition. And that will guide you, beyond what the mind can perceive, because the mind is limited, but your spirit is limitless. And when you tune into that frequency, you start to break these programs. You start to, cleanse out old belief systems, cleanse out the clutter. You're cleaning those dishes, and like you're starting to see reality a lot clearer than you were before. And new information will come from that. New experiences will come from that. New energy inside of you will come from that. And you'll just have this like sense of more freedom. It doesn't mean there's no challenges. You're at every level on your path. You have to go through these different stages, and you have to like new things always come in. Like I said, you're in these environments. You're picking up on all this stuff. Like new things are gonna come in that you have to cleanse out. But if you take it day by day and take the steps, you'll see how it gets so much easier. And then the mind like slowly starts to get away. And then if you let things pile up, the mind might act up again. But that's like your chance, like to be like, okay, then that means I need to get rid of this, and I need to work on these things. And then by doing so, you'll see that energy building inside of you, and that connection getting stronger, to where you're having the etheric communications. You're seeing the synchronicities. You're seeing all these different energies and communications taking place now, because you actually like cleared your vision. You cleared that vision to see the truth. And that's getting where you want to be, essentially, because we all want to know the truth. We all want to get past old belief systems and get out of these mental programs that make us feel certain ways that hold us back. We want to get past that, and that's what the spiritual path is really all about. And that's that's why it's so crucial to do all that. But I want to finish this video. We got 2 more minutes left, and hope you guys are enjoying it. Let's keep going.
See, it's just different levels of the grid system, different levels of communication, different levels of transferring information, data, which equates basically to energy. So this is all energy exchanges going on, and depending on what sensory we're using depends on what information we get. So if you're using your 5 regular senses, that's the information you're going to get. If you start tapping into the 6, and so on and so forth sense, then you start to get that information. So I'm letting you guys know that when you're communicating with people, when you're in a room with people and stuff, there's an energetic field that you can't see, and there's a grid system that connects you and every other being on this planet. Anything that has a mind, you're connected to it in some type of way. Of course, there's different subdivisions of these grids. Like we have the mental grids, which is the subconscious network. This is where all this stuff lies, but it taps back down into the animal grids, into the techno grids, which is short for technology grids. There's all these different grid systems, and I'll be breaking these down later on the website and stuff. But anyways, you guys, I just wanted to share with you guys a little bit on etheric communication, which is dealing with the subconscious network, the subnet, the mental grids. It's all pretty much the same thing. It's a network we're all connected to. It's the mental energy, the etheric energy, and this is how we communicate without using our physical bodies. And there's communication always going on. If you're in the room with somebody right now, it's very likely you guys have a link, and depending on how much you focus in on each other depends on how much stronger that link becomes. This is why energy vamper, a lot of times they're going to have to try to actually get involved with you somehow to try to strengthen the link to get information from you, and then eventually get access to your energetic field to vamp that energy off of you. So you got to be aware of these things. All right, peace in and out with love, my highest vibrations. My gratitude.
So, super high vibing video. Hope you guys enjoyed it out there. Oh, let's not hear that. What's your thoughts on gang stalking? Gets kind of deep with this. What's your thoughts, Daniel L? So yeah, I was gonna say, if anyone has any questions, put them in the chat now. I did see Daniel O has, what's your thoughts on gang stalking? I feel like this is something you really shouldn't put too much energy into. Just be aware of what's really going on in your reality, and you'll kind of see that you might just be getting paranoid about certain things. You might have certain fears that make you feel like you're being gang stalked. But if you don't have like a reason for these gangs or whatever to be after you, I wouldn't really worry about it too much. Personally, I haven't experienced gang stalking. I have experience, if you want to say, like agent activity and these psychic rebels and energy vampires trying to get connection with me and get into my energy field and all that sort of stuff. But other than that, I wouldn't worry too much about gang stalking, and especially if you're not really doing anything that's going to upset these kind of people, then there's no reason to really worry about it, because you might just be creating certain fears. But like, obviously it is something to be aware of. Just be more aware of your interactions with people, your connection, your communication with other people in the reality, and how that can influence you. That's what the video is going into, basically. If you want to look at things like that, like the energy vampires, psychic rebels, all that sort of stuff is definitely real. I've experienced this. I'm sure other connects in the community could validate their experiences on this, but it's a very real thing. But it's nothing to be afraid of. So essentially, just take that into consideration and just do what you can to be aware. And if you feel, you might want to reach out to Astro if you feel like you might be in gang stalked. But usually it's just, the mind kind of, attaching these different thoughts and ideas. Because unless you're like doing something that's like directly threatening their system, they're not really gonna be coming after you on like that sort of level of like a gang, a group of people coming after you. But it can happen. I'm not saying it can't happen. Just be aware of it, and be aware of, like I said, more of the energy. Be aware of the different interactions that you have, or random people coming up to you and they want to touch you, or they want to like pull you into this conversation, and then you might feel like your energy going down as they're doing certain hand movements or certain words they're using to trigger energy inside of you. Those are the things you want to be more aware of, and let go of that fear, let go of like anything like that you feel like you're being chased or like gang stalked or something like that, unless it really is happening, unless you really feel it's happening. Then you might want to talk to Astro about it. But other than that, you can get a 101 call on the website if you're interested in that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know if anyone else has any more questions. I say this video went pretty deep into it. I try to give some of my insights on it, as well as just some other information in there that was coming through. So hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Our gratitude for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And like I said, we'll have a link in the description to the website, as well as the original video if you want to just go ahead and watch that through. And we'll also have a link to the psychic shielding workshop, which you can use to better protect yourself from these sort of energies when they come around. So once again, our gratitude for tuning in, and peace in and out.